Hello everybody, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different from my usual videos, and we're going to be breaking down one of my latest songs, Baby Steps. Now, if you guys don't already know, I make a lot of lo-fi music as well as doing kind of melee stuff and melee commentary. And in fact, at the Eggdog Invitational, all of the intermission music used my music during that time. So I kind of wanted to mix those two things in my channel, and this is the result of that. If you guys enjoy this kind of content, let me know. But this is another side of kind of creative stuff that I do, so I wanted to share. Let's get to it. All right, so let's get into the track breakdown. To start, we have the piano sound here. The piano is made using this plugin called the Imagiro Piano 2. It is the second version. You can find it for, I believe, $24. It's on sale right now, USD. It's a great piano sound. It's really popular, used by a lot of lo-fi producers because it has like a nice warm piano sound, which you can see here. And all I really did to it in terms of effects was just add a little bit of EQ to take out like the extreme low end. If you listen here, like you can barely hear it. It's just like the really low stuff that'll kind of mess with the compression later on. And then I added this fresh air plugin, which you can get for free. It just adds a bit of kind of brightness to the top end. So it's very subtle, but there's something there. So in terms of the actual harmony, you got the kind of E flat chord to start. And one of the things I think that might be worth pointing out is that in this chord, I use what's called a spread voicing for the entire little piano section. Basically, the idea is like, let's say you have your normal triad. If it's C major, it'd be C, E, G. The idea with the spread voicing is instead of having it be C and then two notes up, you got the G, the E, and then another two notes up, you got the G, or rather like 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones and then 7 semitones. You would be taking the third and kind of spreading it out up onto the top. So you can see here I have the low E flat, the B flat, which is the fifth of the chord, and then I actually have the third way up here. And that just gives me more room in the mix. If you put a lot of like blocky chords, it can sometimes kind of overweight the piano a bit. And then arpeggiating this little sequence actually kind of adds to that room in the mix as well. I just didn't want to have it be like all kind of chunky low end. So you can see here, this is how it sounds. And I tried to make it a bit melodic, with the best example being this chunk here at the end, like where I think this is like important with any harmony part, just because you want to give some structure to the sound, but you also want to make it still catchy as opposed to just doing really basic arpeggios. So that was the start. And then from there, I added these little bell sounds. And the two bell sounds are, one of them is from like a massive key sound I have. And then the other one is from this plugin, I believe it's Yasno. It's like a felt instruments plugin. Just these little plucky things. And combined, I'd say they give some little interesting elements to it. And then I also, with the same Yasno plugin, added this pad. It's very quiet, but it sounds like this. It's literally just the E flat chord, even though the rest of the progression changes. And it's also very, very quiet. So put together, we got these three elements. Pad just adding a little bit to things to make it sound a bit nicer. And then from there, I worked on the drums. And actually, sometimes I'll just start totally with samples and drum rack and that kind of thing. But I recently got this pack from The Count, and it was called Vibe Drums. This is a fully finished loop. But I wanted to just keep the high end, which you can see I've got a bunch of different EQs pulling it out. So this is what it sounds like without that. Just a really fun drum beat. The Count is an amazing producer, especially in terms of the drums. And so all I did was I wanted to keep this like little clicky stuff. So I have multiple EQs all together, just taking at the low end. And then I took the same kick and snare structure, but I added this little like roll between the snares. So I found like a roll sample and then just used a kind of basic kick snare kind of pattern with the roll to give it something. And that's what I have in terms of drums. And then I added, last but not least, is just a little hi-hat. The hi-hat's pretty quiet. little bit of delay as well. Those are the drums, and paired with what we have so far, I think it's already like in a good spot for a melody to be added. Usually I just like to have like interesting kind of ear candy coming through. That's where I then added some guitars, and the way I recorded the guitars were pretty basic, pretty common way to do it, where I started with a melody first. The melody is... So both of these are just, it's just recorded on my Strat, which I have over there. And I just did 2 tracks and panned them both kind of fairly hard to the left and right to give kind of a wide sound. The actual guitar itself is just on a UA Dream pedal, and honestly a lot of the post-processing I did is not too crazy. I had some EQ most of this EQ is just taking out the hum of the single coil pickups. I have a little bit of compression. I have this plugin Soothe, which takes out some of the resonance. Really, really good plugin. Quite expensive, but I would say well worth it once you kind of get more experienced. And a little bit of, I believe, the RC20 kind of to make it sound a little bit more lo-fi, but nothing kind of crazy with the guitar sound. And then eventually I added a rhythm guitar as well, which is just palm muted chords. And so I talked a bit before about when I was adding the piano harmony, I wanted to have some melodic elements in that too. You can hear that with the rhythm guitar where I kind of go like da-da-dun, dun, dun, da-da-dun, dun, with the kind of hammer on pull off thing. That was mostly just kind of little power chords. So together, this. And then the bass that I added was really basic because we had so much low end from the piano that I just had like a sub sine in operator. And I just sidechained that to the kick drum so that it ducks whenever the kick drum plays. And so now we have like a pretty solid foundation for the track, but I knew I wanted to try to make it more interesting as the track progresses. Like if we just get to the same repeating section and nothing changes, the listener can kind of get bored. So I decided to add some harmonies. They're pretty kind of far back in the mix. Similar production choices here, but I'll play them together. So they're just a harmony to kind of make the melody a bit more interesting. I believe these are mostly a third above the existing melody. And then I use this plugin Track Spacer, which is like kind of a more sophisticated sidechain plugin, just to duck a bit of the frequency to give the lead space. So actually I sidechanged it to this music box, which is another little melodic thing I added. And this is using a plugin called Spelldosa. This is also free with the little antique setting. Great plugin, sounds really good. And again, the idea here is I just wanted to add some more interesting elements, some more layers to an already pretty cluttered mix, let's be real. So some of the track spacer stuff was just to, like I have this side chained basically to the guitar. So when the guitar plays, it pulls back a bit to give room for that. And then the harmonies pull to the music box a bit so that those don't clash. And by doing that, I'm able to fit in all 3 elements together. And it just kind of gives the listener a bit more ear candy basically. And to keep things interesting, when we get to the second section of the song, like when we return back to the main kind of riff, I change up the music box melody just so it feels like we've entered a new section. And you can see that here. And this melody keeps changing throughout the mix, so it sounds like all together. More clearly hear the music box as kind of a melodic focus while still bringing back the melody that you've kind of grown to get used to. Hey guys, one thing I forgot to mention while I was talking about the B section is how I set up the transition. Transitions are something that I've kind of learned a lot about as I've been doing music production. And one technique that I liked to use here, and I think I recommend others try, is basically just cutting out the drums. There's some melodic stuff I'm doing to make people realize that the section is changing. But just removing the drums makes it sound like, oh, something's about to happen. And so you can hear that here. So most of the stuff is like exactly the same, but just as soon as the drums get out, you're like, oh, okay, a new section is coming. So that I think is a really valuable tool to use. There's lots of other ways to transition. You can kind of use like kind of filter effects and various stuff, but that's what I decided to do for this song. And then for the B section, I kept it pretty simple. I believe slightly different chord progression. Same thing, adding just the muted power chords to add something to it. And then this is kind of where more of the melody is coming from, this little piano sound. The bass is just also really basic. There's some harmonies. Actually, this isn't even harmony, this is a little melody as well. And then I kept the same drum sound. And the biggest thing I added was this little ticking clock sound, because the idea of baby steps as a song is sort of like moving forward in life. I wrote it for my nephew. I'll probably introduce that in the beginning section. I had this little ticking clock sound, which kind of makes it feel like metaphorically like time is passing, we're moving forward. This is kind of like if there was a story to the song, it's reflecting on like some of the changes and then getting the same sort of strength to kind of keep going, which when we bring this all back in, we just have a little drum fill that I kind of constructed with some different sounds. And I just use mostly the same snare sounds and a little tom sound, and then like a crash sound, I believe. So nothing too super crazy with the fills. Altogether, it sort of sounds like this. The main things I would want to point out for anyone who's kind of a budding producer themselves is I think a lot of this worked because of the track spacer on different things. I think normally this mix would be really crowded, but because different things are ducking, which you don't need the track spacer plugin, you can just use a sidechain. It just allows you a little bit more control. But that kind of allowed things to all work together. But a lot of the actual like processing on stuff is basic like sidechaining. Yeah, I actually sidechained the hat to the kick as well, just to give it a bit more room. So a lot of it is just ducking various volume amounts to make that kind of come together, using Soothe to get rid of any resonance that I didn't like. And that was honestly it. Like most of the song is pretty kind of upfront. It is what it is from the start. And then in terms of effects, almost all of it is going to a Valhalla vintage reverb that I'm just kind of trying to have most of the components sent to. Pretty much everything will feel like it's in the same space if I'm sending it all on one return track. And then I just have a really basic echo delay. This was a fairly simple track. And then in terms of the mastering, I have a bit of compression actually like quite a bit of compression on the glue compressor, just to make it like more tame, make everything kind of come together to glue it. Using loudness meter, to see what the volume is like. I used Ozone 10 to kind of do some dynamic EQ stuff, cut a bit of the low end, get the loudness up to where I wanted it to be. Soothe to just again take out some resonance, because I still felt like there's so many little high sparkly bits that could get a little annoying. And that's basically it. You know, I think for a lot of people, obviously there's some expensive plugins here. Most of it is just, you know, recording guitar with a little amp sim. Some of these are built-in effects. I'm using a lot of built-in, like all the EQs I'm using are built into Ableton, the saturation, etc. So nothing super crazy. Most of the EQ even is just like getting rid of certain noise that I should have been a bit more careful with when I recorded the guitar sections. Free plugin for the music box. And altogether, I'm really happy with the result. So if you guys enjoyed the song, definitely check out Radar Pressed Record on Spotify. Radar was unfortunately taken, so I had to be Radar pressing the record button. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you guys want to see more content around my lo-fi songs, definitely leave a comment and have a great day.